Timothy Armoo is an entrepreneur, investor, international speaker, and now published author. Timo is perhaps best known for founding Fanbytes. He scaled it to 80 employees, raised over $2 million in funding, and won clients such as Deliveroo, Samsung, the UK government, before selling it in an 8-figure deal.
Never shared this before. After we sold Fanbytes, I thought, okay, cool, I'm done. I don't ever need to work again. Like, I'm good. The thing that I really wanted is happen. And one day you wake up and you go, wow, this is the life I designed. I'm giving away £10,000 of my own money to different people to help fund their ideas. I brainwashed myself. Too many people walk around with an inferiority complex.
Yeah.
More people should walk around with a superiority complex. I'll be super candid. Again, another exclusive. I truly don't believe that business is hard. The thing that's difficult is the thing in between your ears. It's just getting your psychology right. It's just not freaking out. It's just thinking calmly.
Right, I've teased the subject of wealth. You have transcended so many levels of wealth. What has been the biggest surprise in your journey from rags to riches?
I really hate when people say, like, money doesn't make you happier.
Same.
I think that's a bunch of bullshit. I am significantly happier now with money. The whole idea that money doesn't make you happier is just rich people propaganda.
You're not an out of touch billionaire that doesn't know the reality of what like the everyday person lives through.
In my wallet, I always carry around at least £500 in cash just to give to people. Every single week, I give out £500. Legacy is just driven by ego. And it still makes me just like have goosebumps. And she starts crying, like profusely crying. A lot of people listening to this, the surface reason you tell yourself is money. I think the underlying reason that it probably is a need for significance and achievement. One day I cried. I've never actually told this story before. I just felt so emotional that I had to then go to the bathroom and I just started crying.
Oh, Timo.
I had found him in his room, passed away. So an incredibly traumatic thing for a 21-year-old who was just living with his dad. Every other thing just became almost a footnote when you have a dad who has passed away that you've witnessed.
Welcome to Strategy and Tragedy, the UK's top 20 business show. If this is your first time here, then a very big warm welcome. I'm your host, Stephanie Melodia, and if you are tuning back in, then welcome back. It is so great to see you again. I am so excited to interview my next guest. Timothy Armoo is an entrepreneur, investor, international speaker, and now published author. Whoop, whoop. With his new book, What's Stopping You, coming out in January. Timo is perhaps best known for founding Fanbytes, a Gen Z-focused influencer marketing agency, which he started while at university. And within just 5 years, he scaled it to 80 employees, raised over $2 million in funding, and won clients such as Deliveroo, Samsung, the UK government, before selling it in an 8-figure deal to Brainlabs in 2022. Timo has since brokered 2 more exits, earning him major recognition, including being named as Forbes 30 under 30 for one. He's also committed to social impact with the Fanbytes Fund, backing influencer campaigns for Black-owned businesses. Timo, welcome to Strategy and Tragedy.
Thank you. This
It is
cool.
Amazing to have you here. Now, with your new book, super exciting, you say we all have a version of us who is the confident, successful person we know we can be. But too often we get in our own way. I certainly did. And it took me years to overcome myself and eventually become successful. So, Timo, I'd love to hear from you. Well, you wrote it.
Yeah, I know. And now that I'm hearing it,
Your
like,
book.
I'm like,
That's good.
Whoa, that was a banger. Yeah.
Banger. Buy the book. There's more of that goodness where that came
Yeah.
from. And it ties in so perfectly to the great title, right? What's stopping you? Exactly. It ties in perfectly. So I'd love to hear, what are some of the mental frameworks, principles that helped you overcome some of those blockers and ultimately win at this game of life?
Win at this game of life. Well, I mean, the first thing, I really like the fact that you call it a game of life, because I think that it is a game, and as a result, it is a system of inputs and also outputs. And so if I think about myself growing up in South London, living on a council estate with my dad, being a black kid growing up in South London, there was basically only one input I was getting, which was basically you basically have to be one of the mandem, right? And I had lived in Ghana for 10 years and I'd come here. And so all my inputs were basically shaped by my environment, which was basically, it wasn't cool to be smart. That was a big thing. It was basically the only way you made it out, quote unquote, was becoming either a footballer or a rapper. And the truth was, because I spent a bit of time in Ghana, I had this like very weird undertone in my mind of you can do more, you can be more. But it was just this nagging feeling every single time. And I credit my mum a lot. When I was in Ghana, my mum would find people who were traveling from London to Ghana and pay them so that they could send me books to read.
No.
Which was just incredible. Like
No.
I absolutely, I'm so grateful for that, because that's the reason why I really love readers. So I think there were all of these different things that happened in my life which told me that I was meant to do something significant. I was meant to do something special. But also my physical environment was showing me the complete opposite. And that's why I say there's a version of you, because there's almost the external version that you see, which says, all right, council estate, smelly staircase, dad works in social care, divorced parents. That version there is like beating at you every single day. But then internally, there's that version of you where you're like, well, actually, here is all the evidence that I have to basically show that this could be different and that this is different.
Shout out to Mama Armoo straight off the back. How cool is she for getting these like books to you? That's so sweet. If you're tuning into this right now, then first of all, a big heartfelt thank you. I really appreciate it. And secondly, there's a very high chance that you're on your own entrepreneurial journey right now. So whether you're a first-time founder and you're figuring things out and you feel like you're on your own, or if you've done it before and realized that actually this whole entrepreneurship business is a lot easier said than done, then I might be able to help you. If you feel like you vibe with my energy and feel like you need some of that professional big sister direction, support and advice, then I'm opening up a few select spots for that one-to-one coaching, mentorship and growth strategy for ambitious founders. There's a link in the show notes, so check it out and I would love to hear from you. All right, let's get back to the episode. So how did you overcome that? Because I get what you're saying, like there is this internal niggle and you're never going to get away from that, right? If you've got something in that, and thankfully if you've got at least one of your two parents are kind of nurturing some of it. But to your point, like you've got the social pressures, you've got what you're seeing, role models, like you need a lot more to counteract that and overcompensate. So tell us kind of the rest of the story. What gets you beyond just the niggles?
Well, so I think there were two main things that really helped me. One was I brainwashed myself. And so I'll explain what I mean. So when I was around 13, I discovered this website called retireat21.com. And it's still live, actually. And I remember just stumbling across that site and just reading these stories of people who were just a bit older than me. And they were building online businesses, they were making money, and just thinking, oh my God, it's possible. It's possible for you not to wait for you to be an adult, for you to then go and do things. I think right now there's a very popular phrase online, which is you can just do things, right?
Yeah.
And I think and I think at that point I was very much like, wow, yeah, I can just do things. And so that was one way I just brainwashed myself by consuming so many of content like that, where it just normalized success. The second thing that I did, and I highly encourage people to do this now, is, so as I mentioned, I grew up on Oak Kent Road, right? And what I would do every Sunday, starting around 14, 15, what I would do is every Sunday I would go to the Posh's hotel, and I would just sit in the lobby and I would work away on my like Toshiba laptop. And for me, it was almost my way of like brainwashing myself to say, I'm actually meant to be here. So I would choose Claridge's. And it got to a point where I'd go every Sunday to Claridge's and I'll sit in the lobby and I work, that the doorman got to know me. And the doorman was a guy called Ian. And I remember one day I came, he said, "Hello, sir." And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is insane. Like, he is calling me a sir. So I think actually the piece of advice to a lot of people would be, you might feel mentally stuck. And a big part of it might also be that you might feel that mental stuck then translates to being physically stuck. And even if it's as simple as one day, take yourself out to a very nice hotel, just work from there. Take yourself somewhere and just have like a really nice tea. What you're doing is you are normalizing to your brain that like this is normal, because your brain doesn't know what is normal and what is abnormal. So with constant, I guess you can call it mental rehearsal, what would happen is that you will start to normalize these things. And doing that at a young age just took me away from that kind of dark mental space that I was in.
Incredible. I'm so impressed by how ahead of the curve you were, right? Because this is like pre-Instagram, sorts of trends. They've got this huge, great movement at the moment with like visualization, manifesting, and exposing yourself to these environments, to this level of success, which I love. But this is turning back like the sands of time, and so what I'm curious, right? Like, this is incredible, and I love the key word that you mentioned there, which was like normalising success.
Yeah.
This is something I've observed from you and other very, very successful outliers. Is it's no big deal. Like, it's no big deal. I remember you commenting, someone was interviewing you about selling your business in this 8-figure deal that I mentioned. And what age were you when you did that? You were in your 20s.
Yeah, I was 27.
Incredible, right? So like before the age of 30, you've had this incredible business success. And your response to that was, like it was all part of the plan, it was just like, fine, no big deal. So I'd love, first of all, for you to just kind of expand on that, because I'm fascinated, but also reconciling that laissez-faire attitude with these humongous ambitions. We're just talking about the book as well that we've got here too, and definitely pre-order or buy it if it's out now, because it's awesome. But you say about this too, like, this is the first book that you've published, you've got this incredible deal, but your ambition is to get that to be a Sunday Times bestseller. But you're like chill about it as well. So like, let's square the hole with that.
There's a very, have you ever heard of the story of the duck who's on the lake, right? And above the lake, the duck looks very, very calm, but then under is paddling crazy.
Right.
I think that's probably me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, which is that, yes, like during Fanbytes, right? During Fanbytes, I remember, and for those who don't know what Fanbytes was, basically we had around 20, I'd spotted this idea, which was basically that influencers were going to be the next big thing, and brands would need a way to tap into those influencers. And I had seen the idea had worked in the US, and I thought, well, we should basically do that also in the UK. And most importantly, because we were part of the Gen Z audience, we should position it like brands to tap into a Gen Z audience using Gen Z influencers. And that was actually like a very specific, practical, intentional decision that I made, because I thought, well, I've seen this game before. I've read enough books to know that when there's a period like this of crazy growth in some industry, there comes to be some sort of consolidation further on. And the people who actually win in that consolidation are the people who are specialized in some way. And so with Fanbytes, I saw that and I went, okay, cool. We are going to build this business, which is going to be all around helping brands to tap into that. Now, here is something very interesting, which is in the first 4 years of Fanbytes, I was a very intensely stressed person. And we were growing, but it was just as if we were just absolutely just pulling and pulling and pulling and trying to make things work.
Just a sister up the hill. I never pronounced the name correctly.
Yeah.
The what's it? The Greek, like pushing the ball.
Yes. Exactly, right? Just pushing. And for some reason, all our other competitors, the ones who were doing well, it didn't seem like it was a crazy amount of effort for them. And I thought to myself, okay, what are we doing wrong? Or what am I doing wrong? And I realized that the thing I was doing wrong, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, the thing I was doing wrong was I was expecting it to be very hard.
Yeah.
And because that was my expectation, anytime something went wrong or anytime something went a bit left, I treated it as if it was an absolute catastrophe. So like actually in my book, so the book is split into 11 different cheat codes is what we call them. And one of the cheat codes is cheat code number 8, which is it's not that deep. Right?
This is what I wanted to ask you about. I love it. Yeah.
And it's not that deep is just something that we always said in South London. And I remember once in business, we had an investor pull out of a deal to invest 500K. And at the final minute, he basically decided not to. And I remember my first thought was, oh, it's not that deep. And I remember just feeling this sense of weightlessness to be like, oh, okay, it's not that deep because we're going to figure it out. And so I think when I started to take on that sort of mentality of, well, nothing can really kill us and anything that happened is not really that deep anyway. The moment that I started to internalize that, it's almost as if I had what I can only describe as a relaxed intensity.
Yeah.
And that really helped. And I think for your listeners, that feeling of almost like practicing it would all work out. Things are expected to go slightly wrong, but that's fine because that's part of the game.
Yeah.
When you adopt that mentality, everything changes for you.
Yeah, super interesting too. I remember one of the talks that I went to, you repeated that phrase a few times.
Yeah,
not that deep. I really latched onto it. You being able to react in the moment with that last minute investor fallout by saying to yourself, it's not that deep. How much mental rehearsal did you have to be able to take your mind there immediately in the moment?
So I'll tell you something that really helped me, and it may not be what you expect. It's actually because of a lot of personal things that happened. So when I started Fanbytes at 21, just a few months before, my dad had passed away. So he had passed away because of a stroke. In fact, even worse, I had found him in his room, passed away. So an incredibly traumatic thing for a 21-year-old who was just living with his dad.
So sorry to hear that, Timo.
So I think what happened was every other thing just became almost a footnote when you have a dad who has passed away that you've witnessed. And also just before he had passed away for the first time ever, and it's just because he was like an African dad who basically didn't know how to show feelings. For the first time ever, an article had actually come out about myself. I think it was, I don't know where it was. I think it was in the Times or the Daily Mail. And for the first time, he was like, "Oh, Timo, I'm very proud of what you're doing. I don't quite understand what it is, but I'm very proud. So keep going, keep going." And then literally a few days afterwards, he passed away. And so for me, I've always had this internal thing of, well, this thing has to work. And so something very funny is on the 5th of May, 2022, when we sold the business, I remember going up to the rest of my team and telling them about, why the deal made sense, all the kind of logical, professional reasons. And then I just went off script and I just went, and another reason why we had to make this work is because my dad passed away just a few days before we launched this. And I promised him and I told him that this thing was going to become a success. And then suddenly everyone in the company, just in that moment, like it all made sense. It all made sense why I almost had this very relaxed intensity towards things. It all made sense why when things went bad, I always corralled the team together to say, let's fix it together. Now, for people listening, I don't think that you need to have some kind of like family trauma happen to you. But I think that those sort of things put things in enormous context. So I've had so many things, even since the Fanbytes exit, I've had so many things bad happen. And I've just gone, well, that's all right. It's not that deep. We'll figure it out. And in the book, I talk about like different ways to frame circumstances and problems in order to make sure that you always get sight of the bigger picture.
Wow, Timo, thank you for sharing that. And I'm so sorry. It definitely puts things into perspective. And it's funny because the conversation I just had before was on a similar sort of lines with someone going through this horrible kind of tragedy, and how when you haven't had that or like, of course, I get it, I understand, I empathize, but unless you've been through that experience, it is hard to shortcut that. It is hard to feel that motivation and mission on a cellular level, right? I mean, I love how you kind of use that emotionally to corral the troops, and that all does make a lot of sense. But is there anything else in the book that kind of speaks to someone who thankfully hasn't gone through that trauma, but can still channel some of that energy?
So in cheat code number 2, I believe, is everything big starts small. And if I had a tattoo, I don't like tattoos because I'm scared of needles. But if I did have a tattoo, it would just say like everything big starts small. Because so Fanbytes was the company I started at 21. Before that, I started a bunch of them that all failed. At 17, I started a business called Entrepreneur Express, which sold for 110 grand, right? And I was this 17-year-old kid, and I was like, whoa, that's the most amount of money I've ever made. But then at 14 was actually the first ever business I started, which was a tutoring business. And in that tutoring business, I basically was tutoring people maths. And then I ended up building a network of tutors where I will be the middleman. And I will basically take a cut between the people who want a tutoring and the tutors. Now, why do I give that context? Because if you actually look at my life, you would go, wow, the most significant amount that he made was when he sold Fanbytes and he made the money, etc. But actually, I think the most significant amount of money I ever made was that £5 cut that I took when I started that tutoring business. I was charging people £15 an hour to connect them. The tutor would get £10 and I'll get £5. And that, for me, if that hadn't happened, none of this would have happened. Because at that time, like being a poor kid from South London, I had proved to myself that I could think about an idea, a tutoring business. I'm going to tutor people. I'm going to connect with two people and make money from it. I had basically painted a self-image which said, I am the sort of person who can make money. And if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have then gone on to do the thing at 17. I wouldn't have then gone to do the thing at 21. So the reason I share that story is because there's going to be a lot of people who are listening to this who basically are like, cool, I want to start that big business and I want to do this. And I'm looking on social media and seeing this person with like 50 employees and 100 employees and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it all starts off with that first contract.
Love
that first customer who paid you £20 for your fashion brand. And you go, wow.
Incredible.
Like, I had this idea and I put it out. It all starts with that. And when you internalize that, when you truly internalize that big idea with hundreds of employees and multiple revenue and blah, 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 all starts with that first deal, that first customer, that first signature, that first yes. You start to realize that you should be like almost obsessing just more about that and really enjoying that, as opposed to just saying, I'm going to enjoy myself when we are bigger. I'm going to congratulate myself when we're bigger. It should be, I'm going to congratulate myself now for even doing that first thing.
Love it. You're a mic drop. I always say like it's not that deep, but that was deep. I love that. That's deep. That's deep. I love it. I love it. And it's a message that really needs highlighting that in the age of social media.
Yeah.
Like, I 1,000% was a victim of that rubbernecking.
Interesting.
Looking at other, oh, so successful, the LinkedIn humble brags. And you're like, oh, they've got the office, they've got the neon signs, they've got this, that. Yeah. And you're just constantly looking at, the summit, the Mount Everest. You got the whole journey, not the destination, sort of cliche.
But you also, this is a very important thing. Sometimes people say like, don't compare yourself to others. I disagree with that. I think that as human beings, we are comparison creatures. And what I would then say, so in Ghana, because I'm from Ghana, there's a very famous quote, which is, do they have two heads? Right? So if an auntie or uncle or anyone sees, someone your age or around your age do something and you're like, oh man, I wish I could do that. Then the question is, do they have two heads? And that is effectively saying like that person is no different to you. So people say don't compare yourself. I think that you should compare yourself, but then you should then ask yourself, do they have two heads? What is different between me and that person? Because in most cases, it is that they have just applied very simple things and done it over a sustained period of time. Because it is extremely hard. And we're not talking about comparing yourself to like the Elon Musk of the world, etc. Because like I truly believe there are some people who are just geniuses. But most of us are not geniuses. We're just doing very basic things, but just doing it for a sustained enough period of time. And we have enough self-talk to ourselves saying, we can do this, we can do this. And then you wake up one day. I remember in Fanbytes, one day I cried. I've never actually told this story before.
Strategy exclusive.
One day, this was after COVID, and then we brought people into the team. And I remember I came into the office at midday, and we had about 65 people there who were all just like working on their laptops and everything else. And I just came in and I just felt so emotional that I had to then go to the bathroom and I just started crying.
Oh, Timo.
And the reason I started crying was because all I ever wanted when I was younger was like just to build something I was proud of. And at no point did I think the company would get to this stage. At no point did I think I'd be coming up the stairs. And because our office was not even big enough for the team of people, so we had people taking calls on the stairs. And we had people, closing these deals with like Nike and Samsung whilst on the stairs trying to juggle the laptop on their thighs. And I started crying because like, wow, it's happened. The thing that I really wanted is happened. And this would be the case for so many people who are trying to say build businesses or do anything, like get that promotion, get into that healthy relationship. Is you wouldn't see it happening. And then one day you wake up and you go, wow, this is the life I designed. And when that happens, you really need to like take stock of it.
Yeah. Oh, Timo, that's so sweet. And it's like enjoying it as well, right? It's like taking stock, because it is easy, especially in entrepreneurship, right? To just be like head down, grinding, putting in the and you're like, wait a minute, like that was such a sweet moment to just kind of be present, take stock of your team, your stuff.
Yeah.
I love how you paint that picture as well, like overflowing into the stairwell. I definitely want to talk to you about wealth, and I know you talked about this before, so I appreciate you being open about what's typically a taboo subject. Just before I move on to that, I just have one more quick question. Like, what is coming across like leaps and bounds to me on the other side of the table here is how wise you are, like way beyond your years. And there's so much of what you're talking, I already mentioned, this whole kind of before when you used to go to Claridge's and exposing your person to this world of success, to normalising success. There was something else you mentioned, which was like, I am the type of person. We now know like all the psychological power of how we self-identify. I know Atomic Habits I absolutely love, right? And talks about like, if you want to go and run, you don't go and run, you call yourself a runner. Like, where did that come from for you? Like, are you like, is this thanks to Mama Armoo buying you all these books? Like, because again, also with you saying like not growing up around these people, this stuff, like all this stuff I've just found out in the past few years.
So I think there are two main sources. One was books, and it's a big reason why I penned down this book, because I thought, wow, books really help to transform my life. And if in some way my book can help someone else, that'd be great.
Yeah, amazing.
And by books, I mean, one of the most profound books I ever read was a book called Psycho-Cybernetics, which is an amazing book. And I'll give a brief summary, but basically it was written by a guy called Maxwell Maltz. And Maxwell Maltz was a plastic surgeon. And he basically realized something, that say both of us could have a scar on our face and we'd both go to him and he'd fix your scar and you'd be like, great, I'm good, I'm amazing, I'm done. He'd fix my scar and it'd be gone, but then I would still walk around as if I have this scar on my face, not be able to look people in the eye, not be able to do so many things. And he basically concluded that the brain can't actually tell the difference between what is real and what is fake. And the brain is what he called an auto-suggestion mechanism, right? So if you tell it certain things, it believes certain things, and then it acts in that way. And so I remember reading that book probably around like 16, 17, and it almost being just almost as if someone had like opened up my brain and turned on the bulb and said, look at this. Like, this is how your life is. And so as a result of that, that's why I've become a heavy proponent of the things that you say to yourself. And so I pull up so many of my friends when they say something like, oh, I'm the type of person who, and I, no, don't say that. You know, I'm the type of person who doesn't show up on time. I'm the type of person who always forgets things. It's like, you forgot that one thing. That doesn't mean you're the type of person who forgets everything. And then if you keep telling yourself that, what happens is when the opportunities come for you, you tell yourself, oh, I'm going to forget it anyway. So then you don't do it. And so being able to really own the self-talk that you give is very important. And then I think, very candidly, the hardest part about business, especially as a first-time entrepreneur, is that you don't know what you don't know. And so as a result, every single thing that comes up seems like it's going to be the worst thing that's ever going to happen to your entire business. It's a reason why, for example, the average age of a successful entrepreneur, actually, I'm going to ask you, do you know the average age of a successful entrepreneur?
Like 50, like 40 something?
There you go.
Yeah.
The average age of a successful entrepreneur is 42.
Yeah.
And it's because basically they spent their entire career figuring out all the unknown unknowns. So the only thing that is left is just the known knowns. So they just do the thing that they know to do. And so for me, when I think about life philosophy or business frameworks, it often is basically that I've done all the things not to do. I have been negative self-talk. I've been very selfish. I've been unnecessarily intense to people. And then I realized, oh, that doesn't get me the thing that I want. So therefore, I'm just going to do the opposite of that. And so a combination of that and books has been transformative.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Quick one. So sorry to interrupt. I'm sure that you are on the edge of your seat listening to this interview. At least I hope so. I'm so aware of all the other podcasts that are already out there. So the fact that you've decided to tune in and listen to this one is not lost on me. If you can just go that one step further and hit that follow or subscribe button, doesn't cost a thing, takes 2 seconds. Now is your chance to do that. It means so much. Really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the interview. And I can imagine like Timothy Armoo of today does not need to like wake up and say morning affirmations in the mirror, at least not anymore, maybe when you were 12. But like for anyone who does need a bit of extra help with like if they're falling into that trap of like, not quite, or is that like you saying with that negative sort of self-talk, what advice can you give? And is there anything in the book again that talks to that?
Step 1 is awareness that you're doing this. And then step 2 is actually evidence. So here's what I mean by that. I believe that all our beliefs about who we are all basically based off evidence that we have told ourselves. So if you imagine that you have a chair, I'm going to call it the chair of belief. If you only have one evidence point which says you are a sort of person. So let's say your belief is, I can become a successful entrepreneur. And you have one belief, which is when you were 12 years old, you started a tuck shop and you made $100. Great, that's one belief. The problem with that is if you imagine a chair, it can't really stand on just one thing. But if you build up enough very small evidence points that, oh, and also I had a small design service and I charged a stranger £100 and they paid me. Cool, that's another stick. And then also I was able to do a presentation at my workplace in front of 10 people. Cool. That's another belief. And what you should do is very much write down on a sheet of paper, this is all the things, this is all the evidence points that I have that I am the sort of person who can actually end up becoming a successful entrepreneur. And if you do that, what you find is you have a belief chair which is built on so much strong foundations that is virtually unshakable for you then to go, oh, I can't actually do this. And so if you're in a space now where you're almost, talking to yourself negatively, be aware of it. And then candidly, get a sheet of paper out and just write like your little successes. And it can be anything from the thing that you did at 9 to the thing that you did at 12 to the thing that you did at 29. There's all these little things that you did that prove that you are actually someone who is a winner. And eventually, as you just look at that, you go, wow, that person's a winner. I should probably start acting like that.
I love that answer, Timo. And I love how this goes beyond like the hacks, the vacuous motivation, because like it's not enough to just do like morning affirmations. You're like, oh, okay, fine. I'll just keep telling me I am a successful entrepreneur, whatever. Like if you don't actually believe that, so you do need to collect that that evidence. But also, I think part of like that brain hacking we do on ourselves is like we can pick and choose the evidence that we want to fit whatever narrative we want, right? So like whichever story, you could almost pick like this is one narrative. You could even just as a thought experiment do like the complete opposite. Your brain can probably find evidence for both.
100%.
This is where you want to pick and choose.
Yeah.
How does that help you?
I mean, actually, that's a very good point. Cheat code number 1 in the book, the title is literally "We Are the Stories We Tell Ourselves."
Yeah.
Like just plain and simple, we are the stories that we tell ourselves. Tell yourself a good story, you win. Tell yourself a bad story, you lose.
Yeah, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right.
You're right.
All right, I've teased the subject of wealth, so let's come on to that. I'm really excited to talk about this. Okay. So you have already mentioned a few times, even on this podcast, you've talked very openly online, everything about your kind of humble beginnings, right? You've said already a couple of times you're a black boy growing up on a council estate, Kent Road. You have transcended so many levels of wealth.
Yeah.
You are a stunning and unique case for social mobility. In a very short space of time, you've just transcended like 16 different like levels of classes, right? From your very unique vantage point, what has been the biggest surprise in your journey from rags to riches, let's call it?
My biggest surprise, and this answer may frustrate people, because when I first heard it, I was also frustrated, was that life just goes on. So when you achieve anything, whether it's a financial goal or whatever goal that you are trying to pursue, you tend to think that at that point, something is going to change. And yes, all your financial concerns are done. I also, by the way, side note, I really hate when people say like money doesn't make you happier.
Same.
I think that's a bunch of bullshit.
I agree.
I think that's a bunch of bullshit. I am significantly happier now with money.
It's just to lie rich people tell poor people, right?
Yeah, like,
just to keep them down.
It's absolutely... The whole idea that money doesn't make you happier is just rich people propaganda. Yeah. It does make you happier. Now, having said that, it's because generally most of your concerns and worries are financial things.
And can I ask, sorry, just on that note, so obviously there's kind of like level 1, just removing that anxiety because like money pressures, like there's nothing worse, right? And it eats you alive on a constant basis. So once you've eradicated that, what kind of going up a few levels to like where you're at now, what like big or small, cheap or expensive, what makes you happy now?
I'll tell you what. The biggest thing for me is it buys speed. So it buys speed to do things. So, for example, after we sold Fanbytes, I thought, okay, cool, I'm done. I don't ever need to work again. Like, I'm good. And that lasted for like 2 months. And then I went, well, I need to do something with my time. And I'll tell you the biggest thing was that for a lot of projects that I then took on, I thought about it in the same way the old me had thought about it, which was, all right, I'm going to like find people, then we're going to try and figure it out, and I'm going to train them, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And then I spoke to a friend of mine who just thought, well, there's someone else who's figured out the thing that you want to do. Just pay them, and then they'll just do it for you. And I thought, oh, yeah. And so, for example, right now, we are starting a new company, and I need a very good CEO for it. And I realized that I could just go to like 5 of our competitor CEOs and just say, hey, come do this.
Right.
And I'll pay you well, and you get a cut of the upside. So I think it's speed. It's also like speed when it comes to things like health. I've had several family members who are, well, family members and friends who unfortunately have had like some health scares, and they've been thinking, all right, I need to go to the NHS, or even if they go private, it's not really like super private. And then I've had to do stuff like, pay for a really good doctor from Switzerland to fly over, come and treat them, do that stuff, and then go. And that's speed, because it could have taken 6 months, but then it took like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so that has been a big thing.
And how
speed.
does that shape your worldview? Like, especially mentioning healthcare as an example,
Yeah.
right? Like, having come from the streets, it's called Jenny from
Yeah.
the block here, right? Like, you're not an out of touch billionaire that doesn't know the reality of what like the everyday person lives through. Like, you know that people have to wait however many months for the NHS bill. So how does that mean, knowing that you can afford that for either yourself or your close ones, but then also knowing that so many people can't?
Yeah, I mean, I have and I think I said this in a Times article. So in my wallet, I always make sure I carry around at least £500 in cash.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, just to give to people. Like every single week, I give out £500 to people. Now, for some reason, and I've never been through this, but like for some reason, homelessness like really gets to me. Really gets to me. And so actually quite a few times in Oxford Street, especially when it's like dark and cold, what we'll do is that we'll go to John Lewis, we'll get them mattresses duvet covers and that sort of thing. That's something that is like very meaningful to me, because people often talk about this idea. This is actually something that I think I really hate when people talk about this. They talk about legacy a lot. And I think legacy is just driven by ego. The truth is, a lot of us, maybe 5-10 people would remember us, but then over time they wouldn't. Yeah. And so I've never really believed in legacy, but I have believed always in like being as helpful and as useful as you can, given what you've got. And so I use a lot of my money for that. And that's not virtue signaling. I also use a lot of my money to make more money. But where I can, especially if it's something like £500 a week, I am more than happy to do that, especially for things which feel very visceral to me.
So, for example, with the homelessness problem, have you ever entertained solving the issue more at its core, at a more sort of systemic sort of level? Yeah.
So, 2 points on that. So, one of the most profound things, and again, I've never shared this before, but there you go.
All the exclusives.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
One of the most profound things I did, I remember this was in South Bank, and I saw this guy, homeless guy, and like for a week, every day I'd see him. And I remember just thinking, come on, like, there's something up here. So then I started talking to him, and then he basically told me that he, unfortunately, had been a victim of sexual abuse. And as a result of that, he had fled his family home. They couldn't give him anything at all. And so therefore he ended up on the streets. And I remember saying to him, okay, cool, let me help you. And so there's a Premier Inn near in South Bank. So then the next day, he and I went to that Premier Inn, and I said, for 2 weeks, I'm going to pay for you to be here. And then we'll, buy you a nice shirt, etc. I'll even like help you. I'll get my EA to actually help you to apply for some just like very simple jobs, like super laborer jobs, etc. And he was, very appreciative, grateful, etc. And then we would text every day. And then after a while, he stopped texting. And I thought, okay, what's going on? And about a month afterwards, I came back and I saw him, same place, still duvet cover, asking for money. And I thought to myself, and then I spoke to him again. I said, James, what's going on? And he said something very interesting to me. He said, I preferred it here. And I just remember in that moment thinking, I don't know enough about this problem.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about this situation. I think that it is, all right, let's find you a warm place. Let's get you set up. Let's give you money. But it's much deeper than that. And I don't think I'm in the period of my life now where that's something which I deeply want to solve on a big scale. But I do think there will be a time when I do it. Have you ever heard of this whole like learn, earn, return thing?
Yeah, vaguely, but
Yeah,
expand on it.
right. So the whole idea is that you split your life in thirds. Your first third you learn, your second third you earn, and then your third third you return everything that you've earned. I do believe in that, and I think though right now I'm still in my earning phase.
Yeah.
And the bit I can do to support people like James, etc. Yes, but then I think at some point, touch wood, when I get to 50, 55, I think at that point I would just be obsessed about returning. And one of the things I really want to focus on is the homelessness stuff and also mental health as well, because I have a lot of family members, a lot of family members who struggle with things like bipolar, schizophrenia, autism. It's just rife through my entire family.
Wow.
And so whatever we can do to solve that will be a big thing.
Well, appreciate you sharing that story. That's so eye-opening, right? And I think it's easy to come in from the outside and have maybe a bit of the savior complex, right?
Yeah.
And kind of be like, I'm so comfy, I'm so cushy, and then apply that to someone else. Like, don't you want this too? So really eye-opening. I get what you're saying with like, don't know enough about this issue. You're doing sort of what you can, bits and bobs. So now, I know I had something definitely not on the same scale whatsoever, but I had a similar sort of success with a different sort of social cause, and it really motivated me to then look at, we started out here with homelessness and now it's expanded over to like mental health. And then you're like, this list gets very long very quickly. And you're like, this world, like there's a lot of problems to solve. I mean, like at the core as an entrepreneur, you're a problem solver. Yeah. And so there's a bit of like, how can you have impact and effectively solve a problem without spreading yourself too thinly, falling into that savior complex and trying to do too much at once.
One of the biggest things, actually, just on that point, one of the people from my team, because I've built a pretty decent size personal brand, and one of the people from my team, I would always say stuff like, hey guys, look, if a post doesn't go well or if something goes well, it doesn't matter. As going back to my book, it's not that deep. And I would say, it's not like we're saving lives here. And then one of them says, well, actually we are, because there have been so many stories, countless, hundreds of stories of people who have consumed my content and then have gone on to start small service-based businesses. And then as a result of that, they have then gone on to change their lives in some way. They've gone to change their family's life. I remember one story, and it still makes me just like have goosebumps each time, is I was at King's Cross Station and this woman comes up to me. She said, oh, excuse me, are you Timothy? And I said, yeah. And then she starts crying, like profusely crying. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, we're in King's Cross right now. I know what's going on. And she said that basically her son had been to prison for 5 years. And somehow her son had found my content. And the son decided to change his life. And he came out and started a car wash business. And in their first year, just due to the things that I talk about, in their first year, they were going to do $500,000 a year. Wow. And he had changed his life. He had hired his friends who also were previously in the gang life. And also now he takes care of his mum. And I remember just feeling like, wow, that all came from just me looking at a camera and being like, hey guys, you should do this.
Yeah, incredible.
And so in our small way, and I hope for everyone, in their small way, they realize that maybe the thing they're doing might be like the most capitalistic thing in the world. But like in your small way, try and leave some sort of impact to someone.
Yeah, not legacy.
Not legacy.
I agree with you on the ego on that one for sure. And I guess what comes up is like there's two potential paths you can take. You can either recognize the impact that you're having or that you are having more of an impact than you recognize. Or I can imagine how that kind of pressure can change your MO, right? Because your whole modus operandi has been, it's not that deep. And in like a counteractive way, you've achieved that same result, but you're doing it by sort of opening that valve and reducing the pressure, if that makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, I want to make sure we close the loop on you being so wealthy. Yeah. I want to make sure
I'm not that wealthy.
You mentioned, because there's a couple more questions I want to ask you.
Yeah, hit me.
One was, did we close the loop on you saying like the biggest realization through kind of achieving your wealth has been just goes on?
Yeah, just that life just goes on, man. Like Yeah, just that life goes on. I remember the day after we sold, and I remember the next day I went to Sainsbury's, and I was expecting there to be like a choir for me. Like, oh my God, the guy has done it. Timo. And then I go and there's no choir and I'm livid. And life just goes on. And yeah, it was just a realization for me that you should 100%, and I know this sounds so cliche, and if I heard this earlier on, I would roll my eyes, which is you should 100% and enjoy the journey of the thing. Like the people that you do it with and the way you do it and the environment that you do it with, that's the fun bit, because you get to the destination and it's good. 100% is good. And I hope everybody listening to this achieves every single dream that they ever want. But to also take a lot of stock, that is the journey and the people that you do it with that matter tremendously more than the actual destination. And if someone had told me that, I would have said like complete cap, complete rubbish, but it's not.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah. My last question on this is motivationally for you, right? I can imagine how growing up again as a young black boy on a council estate, I can imagine how I can just, barely even imagine how underestimated you were, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if there was maybe a bit of a chip on your shoulder. And okay, cool, right? So many entrepreneurs do have that sort of drive. How has that motivation changed for you after achieving that success and financial freedom?
So when I was 16, I got a scholarship to a school called Christ Hospital. And Christ Hospital is like a 16th century Edward VI school. You wear these very elaborate gowns. It's kind of like Harry Potter on Earth, basically. And I remember going there, and through my schooling before that, I was always known as the intelligent one. And then I went to Christ Hospital and I met really genius people, really smart people, people who were basically groomed to Oxbridge from like 12. And I realized that was not a game that I could win. I couldn't win the intelligence game. And so that was partly a reason why I then started that business at 17, because I was like, okay, you guys can win the academic game, but I'm going to win the business game, right? Now, why do I tell that story? I tell that story because actually I think it is symptomatic of, for me, the biggest driver has always been, and I'm sure it comes down to some childhood thing, the biggest driver has always been for a need for significance. And I think for a lot of people listening to this, the surface reason you tell yourself is money. I think the underlying reason that it probably is a need for significance and achievement. Because when I was growing up with my dad, council house, etc., I told myself that the thing was money. It was money. It was growing the business. It was. I know if I make money, I'll change my life, and I have as a result of money. But I think underpinning it all was just this deep desire to feel like I was significant, to feel like I had achieved something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think that is something a lot of people listening to this should aim to tap into. It's fine. So, have you heard of the whole superiority complex? I don't think enough people walk around with a superiority complex.
Okay.
I think too many people walk around with an inferiority complex. And more people should walk around with a superiority complex, which should be, I'm that guy, I'm that girl, and I can do the thing.
Main character energy.
Like walk around with the main character, because the truth is, in your life, you are the main character. Like, we are all extras in someone else's life. And if you just walk around as if you are an extra in your own life, then that's not a really great way to live. And so for me, I've always believed I was main character. I've always believed that I was meant to be significant. And so now, even after the, business success, financial success, I still think that there is more to do, because I want to also prove to myself how much of potential that I have and how much more significance I can have.
Yeah. So that hasn't gone away for you, even though you've achieved this huge
No.
success, this financial
But
freedom.
it did but I mean, candidly, it did for about 2 years. It did for about 2 years. I'll be super candid here. Again, another exclusive. So we sold in 2022. I broke up with my partner in 2023. And it wasn't anything wrong she did. It was because I basically did not know what I was doing with my life. I just didn't know. I was just like, now what? And I'd been with her for 7 years. And she was great. But I just felt this restlessness of now what? And this is actually a piece of advice to your listeners as well, which is hopefully everyone would achieve the thing that they want to achieve. But then it's also very important for you to then understand, what does that help you do? And I didn't have a good idea for what that helped me do. I think in the book, I talk about the importance of how to think about playing long-term games with people. And candidly, when I was starting up in business, I just was like, okay, I'm going to build this business, then I'm going to sell it before 30, and then I'm just going to die. I was just like, okay, and then what? But you should also have that same thing for your life, your career, which is, I get the promotion and then it helps me to do what? I grow the business to $1 million a year, but what does that help me do? I get I start the family. All right, but like, what does that help me do? And having that understanding of that is such a major thing, because you don't want to be the person who has achieved the thing they want and is sad.
And
it doesn't make any sense.
Lost.
Yeah.
Well, perfect segue as we wrap up this interview, and I appreciate all the strategy and tragedy exclusives and all the stories. What that feeds into then is, what are you doing now? What are you doing next? What's the epiphany? How's that helped you realize?
Yeah. So 2 things. I mean, one reason I wrote the book, What's Stopping You, was because I really, really wanted to help people to confront themselves, to overcome their past self, and more importantly, to then live the version of the life that they wanted. And I actually wrote it more as a letter to my younger self, who was struggling a lot with self-doubt and feelings of insecurity, and breaking through and saying, look, guys, here are 11 cheat codes for you. Things like, it's not that deep. Things like how to write a more positive story to yourself. There's even a chapter there which we didn't get into, which is like cheat code 6 is how to build a network when you are a nobody, right? Here is everything that you need to do in order for you to actually then achieve the thing that you want to achieve. And so that has been a big focus of mine for the last year, writing this book, getting it right, getting it to a position where I felt like, yeah, okay, this is something which is ready to be given to people and to help them actually change their lives and also do the thing that they actively want to do. And then from a professional perspective, one of the things I did, which was super interesting, was after we sold Fanbytes, I wrote a list on my phone, and it was basically 30 things I wouldn't do again, right? And it was basically trying to look at all the mistakes that I had made. The list ended up being 119. Because it was just like, oh, and then I messed up here, I messed up here, I messed up here, I messed up here. But now I feel like I'm in a position now where I have a very good idea of the type of business that I want to get involved in. And so I've set up a fund, or I've set up a company, I guess you can call it a PE fund, and it's called Irrational Media. And what we do is that we go and we buy up media brands around things that, I'm not going to disclose the full strategy, but we buy media brands, we scale them, and then we sell them on. And so I'm in my zone of genius business-wise, but then I'm also in my zone of genius in terms of like truly being able to help and impact people with my story and also business lessons. This book, What's Stopping You, is kind of partly a self-help book, but then partly business book, because I truly, truly, truly truly don't think that, I truly don't believe that business is hard. I think unless you're trying to build rockets or send people to Mars, the actual tactics of business are not hard. They're very predictable. They're very teachable. The thing that's difficult is the thing in between your ears. It's just getting your psychology right. It's just not freaking out. It's just thinking calmly. So that's why, like, a lot of the first cheat codes are focused on that, and then the rest of the cheat codes are very business centric. They're very right. Here's how you get customers. Here's how you grow a business. Here's how to do this. Here's how to raise money. Here's how to network. And so those are my two things that I'm really focusing on now.
Incredible. Timo, thank you so much for sharing this on the show. And it kind of feels like, what a journey. Like, I know I've asked you so many questions, but I have way more. I feel like this is also just like scratching the surface, but you've been on one hell of a roller coaster. You've had the lowest lows, the highest highs, I think, like more than anyone really. And there's almost this, obviously, like, the story isn't fully written now, but it does kind of feel like there's a bit of a happy ending now, right? Like, it's taken you time to figure this out. And, you know, we didn't talk about this too much either, but we've got that like post-exit founder identity crisis, which is like what play me the world's smallest violin, right? But you've got the amount of entrepreneurs that exactly like they've achieved that summit, they've climbed the peak, and then it is like, what do I do now? And so I appreciate that like soul searching, and it's just so satisfying to hear there's an answer, and how you're doing that now in these two different ways sounds really exciting. So if you haven't already, pre-order the book. It sounds awesome. What's stopping you? You've had a flavour of it now with all the different cheat codes, and we'll watch this space with Irrational Media.
Yes,
that's exciting.
That's going to be exciting. Actually, a very interesting thing about what's stopping you is, so it's out on Jan the 15th. Cool. But then on Jan the 10th, what we're doing is we're hosting a live event called What's Stopping You Live.
Nice.
And in there, what we're doing is amazing. What we're doing is, so we're getting people like Simon Squibb, Dan Priestley, Tim Campbell from The Apprentice. All of these people are coming on to the event, and you get to ask them questions. You get to pitch them your business ideas, and even better, I'm giving away like £10,000 of my own money to different people to help fund their ideas as well. And so it's What's Stopping You Live. I'm sure the link is in my bio on Insta and on LinkedIn. If you just go on it, it's a free event. You just sign up for it.
So exciting. We'll make sure we pop the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing that as well. That is amazing. Do you know where it will be? Can you share location?
Well, it's a live event. I would be in a secret event in Old Street.
Okay.
But it's a live event because we have like thousands of people registered. Yeah.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's a virtual live.
Exciting, amazing. All right, read the book, attend the event, 10th of January. Very exciting. Timo, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Great questions, by the way.
Thank you.
Really,
this
really
was
good questions.
literally 10% of the questions I want to ask you. If we had 3 hours, I could keep going. Don't worry. I appreciate it. Hope you've enjoyed this. Hit a like, follow, subscribe. Like, come on, mate. Doesn't cost anything. Takes 2 seconds. If you haven't already done it, please do it now. Episodes are weekly, every Wednesday, 6 a.m. UK time. Hope you've enjoyed this. Leave us a comment if you have, and hopefully see you next time. Take care, guys.